Welcome to a chef's grimoire. Winter. Today we'll be working with the Empress. We're going to start with this new page that is our seasonal chart. It's a seasonal food chart, and I thought this was very appropriate for the Empress to bring this into our realm with her, because she speaks all about earth and what is growing and what the seasons are and what time of year we're in. So here in New York, as I've mentioned quite a bit, we are in winter. It's about 17 degrees outside right now as a high for the day. So we have a very chilly winter this year, which is great. There's been many years where we've had warm winters, haven't had much snow, and you can tell in the spring things really were lacking. Cherry trees and peach trees did not bloom nor bear fruit. The apple trees, some withered, some died. They need that hard frost in our area and our climate for those things to grow properly. So climate change is everything, but here we are, and this is what we have. Now, in today's grocery stores, you can go in and you can buy asparagus in the middle of January. I mean, it's no big deal, and people don't think about it anymore. But that's why I wanted to include this page, because it's a great reminder of how things used to be before we had our 2-hour shipping or, the internet or anything like that. We had to basically get by with what we had, grew, had in our grocery stores that were only trucked in from 500 miles away rather than thousands of miles away. So it's an excellent reminder to ground and root ourselves back to what used to be available in middle of February, which is where we are. So this is beautiful because it has the available in New York. This is year round. Now, if you're in a different area of the United States or the world, then, of course, you can make your own chart. But this is New York. So meats, pretty much all meat is in season at all times. This is all year round. It goes around the sun with the moon inside. Fish, we have definitely sea bass, clams, oysters, and squid are available in the hardest times of year, in addition to the good times of year. Pretty much all dairy, all the time. Fruit, apples keep all the time, so you can have those all year round. Of course, they're best in the fall. Vegetables, we have root vegetables, herbs that are grown in greenhouses, really, because outdoors, unless we have a soft winter, maybe rosemary and sage would get by, but not much else. We've got sprouts, hothouse vegetables, as we talked about, mushrooms, some mushrooms, the cultivated kinds you can get in the winter, and arugula, because again, it's a greenhouse lettuce or bitter green that you can grow indoors. Dry goods, you've got your wheat, your beans, your cured meats, jams, pickles, and canned goods. So think about it. Back in the Middle Ages, this was all they had. They didn't have this other stuff. This is it. So if you didn't put together your packages for in the fall, spring, summer, you wouldn't have anything for winter. Now, we're going to concentrate on winter. This is where I'm pulling a lot of the recipes from and the ingredients that I'm using in my recipes. So for fruit, we have apples, bananas. Bananas are more of a modern addition to this because we don't have, nor can we grow bananas in New York, but bananas available most in the hardest parts of winter. Dates come to us in the winter, fresh and dried, of course. Citrus from Florida and California. pears, pomegranates, persimmons, avocado, it is a fruit, pineapple, and strawberries. Now, the strawberries we get in winter, especially around February, are Florida strawberries, and they are delicious. They're huge too. Maybe we'll look at them a little later in this episode. Vegetables, we've got carrots, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, celery, collard greens, garlic, kale, onions, parsnips, potatoes, rutabaga, sweet potato, winter squash, broccoli, and my all-time favorite vegetable, leeks. I love leeks. So there you go, and our little picture of the garlic. So that's what we're drawing from for the rest of winter. We'll be drawing from here. Every once in a while, you'll see things pop up that may not be in this list, but mainly I'm drawing from this for all recipe planning. So let's move on to the Empress now. Here she is. I told you we'd get color. I didn't want to bring color in until we reached the Empress. The book, well, we'll go through it and I'll let you know the main reason why. But I'm going to do a little things different. I'm going to actually read all of this first before I start to interpret how I laid this page out in the book. So we'll begin with continuing the Fool's journey. The fog begins to lift, and dewdrops fall from greenery to the earth. The rich tapestry of the forest's floor's aroma fills the senses, and the fool feels the moss beneath their feet while hearing the sounds of the woodlands come to life. Birds singing in branches, the rustling of small animals in the underbrush, branches creaking and twigs snapping underfoot, all contribute to the hum and soothing symphonic melody of the forest. Newly unfurled leaves, which colors range from emerald to soft lime green, filter shade as dappled sunlight paints golden light upon the forest floor. Under a giant oak tree, we find the Empress. She is seated on a throne representing her authority, while wearing a crown of 12 stars upon her head. This crown signifies the 12 zodiacal signs and the 12 hours of day and night. The crown confirms her sovereignty and control over both the heavens and the earth. The Empress's robes are flowing green, symbolizing fertility. And in her right hand she holds a scepter, which is surmounted by the globe of the world. She is nurturing Gaia, who delivers love, creativity, abundance, and the idea of flourishing potential. At her feet is a heart-shaped shield, which bears the astrological glyph of Venus, goddess of love, beauty, and desire. The Fool has spent most of their journey up until now in the esoteric world, learning its teachings and understanding its place within us. The Fool is now brought into the natural world, and all the teachings it has to offer are now starting to be revealed. The Empress is numbered 3. The 3. The number 3 embodies an expansive, optimistic energy. Just as in nature, it is a playful and imaginative force and an invited invitation, using an open mind for living and surviving in an unpredictable world. Various mythologies and spiritual traditions hold the triad sacred, for they all lead to exploration, wisdom, and abundance. If you look at the Roman numeral 3, it almost looks like an M, which, in my mind, M for this particular card is Mother Earth. Very fitting. So our Empress here, sitting on that golden throne, she has plush pillows all behind her, furs. This is a woman of luxury, but not luxury material, more luxury necessity. So the page here is maybe early spring when things are starting to come to life. So it's still kind of cold outside, therefore she would need these things. They're necessities, not just wants. She's holding that scepter as we spoke about, and there's the 12 stars on the crown above her head. She also has a laurel wreath on her head, which is another symbol of fertility. I wanted to paint her with different animals, very submissive and gentle animals. We have a squirrel here. Can you see this little guy? He's coming out of his hole in the tree, and he's looking or dreaming of these little acorns. We have these chicken of the woods mushrooms here that he's pouncing off of to get down to the ground to start his journey to find food. Mushrooms are starting to sprout up, fiddlehead ferns. We have a deer here, a little fawn, taking a little nap, more mushrooms. And all the way up into the trees, we've got the bees and their hive. And we need the bees to make all of this lush landscape come to life. Another laurel to represent that fertility and also the sovereignty of the Empress. I wanted to put a little nest of birds here. Mama bird feeding her three little guys in the nests, and Papa bird coming to help. So we've got the whole family unit coming into play. I had so much joy creating this page. The colors that popped, and it reminded me of, again, going back to the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy is just starting her journey and everything is in black and white. And then all of a sudden she gets to Oz and things turn to Technicolor. It's so fabulous. So that's what this is. This is the pages prior to that. We're all black and white. Again, the esoterical world, the world more in our consciousness versus in our tangible grasp. Tangible is another word for the Empress. I keep using the word grounding, but tangible. Things that start to really embody themselves for our five senses. When I thought of what to use for cooking with the Empress, I went into everything that she embodies. And really what I came up with most was nurturing. She is the mother. She's mother of all of the earth, and she's mother to us. So when you come home and you're a little kid, and you come home and you're cold, Mama will put a blanket around you, or light a fire, or give you a cup of tea. When you're not feeling well, Mama will make sure you're in bed and that you have cozy blankets and a cup of broth. These were all things that started to inspire me for what to make food-wise with the Empress. And for today, I would like to do a bone broth. I think we stem most everything that's comfort food from, especially now being in February, soups and stews and gravies and richer foods that we eat in the wintertime all start with stock or broth. So let's make a bone broth. From that bone broth, I wanted to keep it earthy, so we're going to make a mushroom risotto that is garnished with a whole bunch of love. That, and why don't we talk about those Florida strawberries? They may be a little outside the nest of where the Empress dwells, but they're in season, and I think that they would be lovely with some whipped cream. Let's get cooking. Okay, So the hardest thing about making bone broth is straining it. But let's start from the beginning. So I'm using little bits and pieces. I think these were just chopped up chicken wings. They were called chicken nuggets, which I found very odd. So I'm putting them on a sheet tray. I'm not going to add any extra oil. I'm not going to add any seasonings like salt or anything else. Just putting them on a sheet tray. I like to line it with parchment paper. And into the oven they go. We'll set a timer for 30 minutes. Now these chicken wings took a little longer than I anticipated, so I turned up the oven to 400 and left them in for an extra 15 just to get this color on them. We're going to pop them all in the crock pot and leaving all of that fat on the sheet tray. You don't want it in your stock. Now we're going to add water to cover. And the secret ingredient, apple cider vinegar. This is going to draw the minerals out of the bones. Pop the lid on and let it rest without turning it on for 30 minutes. Once it's rested, we're going to add our veg. Now you could cut up fresh vegetables, but I like to keep a stockpile in my freezer of all onion skins and celery tops and all kinds of good stuff. So when I'm ready to make stock, I can just dump it on in. Now we're ready to cook. So I said the hardest part about making bone broth is straining it. So we've got a lot of stuff. Doesn't look very nice, but we're going to take care of that. Now I could use a strainer, but what I like to do is use my hands. I can pull all the chicken off the bones, and look at these bones. They completely disintegrate in your hands. Fabulous. What I also like to do is just squeeze everything really good to get that extra liquid out. Soon you'll have the broth, a pile to discard, and a little pile for the dog, which is nice. We're going to strain it now with a double-walled strainer. I like this because it really takes care of getting the mini particles out of the stock. We'll use a 1/2 cup ladle, and I'm just going to go and strain it all out. Any residual leftover bits and pieces are going to fall into that double-walled strainer. Now that the stock is strained, we're going to strain it again into our jars. I like to use wide mouth mason jars. These freeze great, they store great, so you just have to be careful about your temperature control. You don't want them getting too hot and then putting them into cold, or vice versa. But here it is, nourishing bone broth. Delicious. We're going to start with shallots for this recipe. Now this is an enormous shallot, but I'm going to treat it like an onion. We're going to cut off the stalk end, get the flat surface, put it on the board, and we're looking for the hips. This has like a oblong shape, so we're going to cut through the oblongness of the shallot and peel it. Now we're going to put slices through from the root to the stalk end, but not going all the way through, and cross cut. And we want a fine chop. Now we're going to work with our mushrooms. I have 3 types of mushrooms. I have these creminis, a portobello, and shiitake. Now, mushrooms are filthy. They just are. So never wash them, never run them underwater. Take a dry towel and just wipe off the dirt. Mushrooms are 90% water, so when you put them into water, they get slimy. Now for our portobello. I'm going to cut out the stalk. And with a spoon, I'm going to go after those gills. Just take them out with the spoon. Give it a good wipe down. Ready to go. Now for our shiitakes, we're going to cut out the stems. And we're going to do the same thing with our baby bellas. Now remember all those stalks. Well, I'm not going to throw them away. We're going to make a stock out of them. I'm going to chop them up fine, add some hot water. We'll cover them, let them come to room temperature, and they're going to enhance our dish. When cutting the mushrooms for this risotto, I don't want to cut them too small because then they'll disintegrate. So I'm doing like a medium dice. And I'm going to try to keep all the mushrooms around the same size. The shiitakes I like to slice, and I can stack 2 on top of each other and then cross-cut them. For the portobello, I'm going to slice. Now this guy's way too big to work in one, so I'm going to work a little at a time. And he still has some grit and gill guts, so let's get that off the board. And we cross cut. This is our mise en place for our risotto dish. We've got our mushrooms. We've got bacon that I pre-cooked. I'm going to crumble that for the top. The risotto. Now, an arborio rice is best, but I have had success with sushi rice in a pinch. We've got salt and Aleppo pepper, dried mushroom powder, saffron, the shallots, chopped up bacon, you could use pancetta, white wine, and butter. Now remember that bone broth? Well, here it is. Beautiful color. I have it on low, so I want it warm. That's important. And this is our mushroom stock. It still has a little grit at the bottom, so I'm going to be careful not to pour that all into the pan when I need it. We're going to get our risotto pan hot and add the butter. I'm only going to start with 2 tablespoons and leave the 3rd in case I need it. Move that around the pan. And we're going to add the bacon, followed by the shallots. Give that a good stir. And in go the mushrooms. Now, this may seem like a lot of mushrooms, but it's going to cook down. And remember, it's a mushroom risotto, so we really want this to be a highly flavored dish. Now what I'm doing here is I'm taking my fingers and just pulverizing the saffron so that it's more of a powder. I feel that the mushrooms are a little too dry. I'm adding that 3rd tablespoon of butter. And this is about 8 minutes later. You can see how they cook down. Very nice. At this point, we're going to add our risotto, or our arborio rice, that saffron that I just made into a powder, the dried mushroom powder, the salt and Aleppo pepper, and give that all a stir. Now comes the time to add the broth. Now, you're going to be continuing to add broth all the way through this cook. I start with 2 ladlefuls, and again, my ladle is a half cup ladle. So 2 ladlefuls gives me a full cup of liquid. And this is where you really just have to pay attention and you have to stir. Now, I told you about the strawberries, and I am stirring while I'm making this, but I want to really just get this going. We're going to make some whipped cream for our beautiful Florida strawberries. Look at these, like little jewels. I'm going to add some cold cream to a bowl, powdered sugar, and give that a stir through a strainer. My powdered sugar has been sitting a while, so it's clumpy. I'm going to take those clumps and just push them through. A little vanilla, and start to whip. You could use a food processor or a KitchenAid, but this really comes together in like 5 minutes. So just don't go to the gym the next day. You want it to have hard peaks, just like that. When ready, we're going to put a good portion of the cream in the bottom of the bowl. And I'm going to take a paring knife and I'm going to slice into the strawberries several times, not going all the way through. And then I'm going to push it down so that it becomes just like that. Beautiful. Back to risotto land. Stir, stir, stir. Now, do you see how the bottom can be seen when I scrape my spoon against the bottom of the pan? That's the indication that you're going to need more liquid. So this time, instead of 2 ladlefuls of stock, I'm going to do a ladleful of stock and about the same amount of mushroom broth. Stir, stir, stir. And there it is. You can see it's almost ready for its new ladling of broth. This whole cook is going to take you probably a half hour, maybe 40 minutes. Just have patience. It comes together. So this is about the 3rd edition of liquid. Usually it takes about 4 editions of liquid. And then you should start to taste because you want it al dente. Now we're going to work on garnishing while the risotto is still cooking. I found this lovely manchego cheese that has truffles through it. I'm going to use this instead of Parmesan. I'm only going to need half. And I'm going to cut off the rind. And then we're going to grate it. I'm going to use the fine grating edge. Now that it's all grated, I'm going to take chives. I like to cut the chives in half if they're long like this, and then take the cut halves and put them together. Now everything is like straight on soldiers. and you can slice through them. Slice, slice, slice. Perfect. So here's our risotto, absolutely lovely. We're going to add some cheese. And I felt it was just a hair dry, so I'm going to add, about a 1/4 cup more of the stock. Now that's better. I'm going to add a little more cheese, those fabulous chives, and last but not least, bacon. A dish fit for an empress. Time to taste the risotto. Now I did taste it before I finished the dish. From all those ladlefuls towards the end, like the half-hour mark, taste it, because you want to make sure that it's al dente. When it's al dente, meaning it's not mushy and it's not hard, it's somewhere in the middle. Once it's al dente, then you know the dish is nearly complete. So at that point, you would turn off your heat, add your cheese, mix it all up, everything we talked about, and then you can garnish it. Now, you don't want the risotto to be dry, nor do you want it to be too wet. It just should, when you spoon it onto the plate, it should stay in its form, but yet ooze a little bit, if that makes sense. But here it is, and I'm absolutely overjoyed with it. Now, we took every precaution to make sure that the mushroom flavor would be enhanced. We used the dried mushroom powder. We used the stems and made a liquid of mushroom that we added. We used 3 types of mushrooms. I'm hoping that the mushroom flavor is dominant. And then the rice, of course, will add its creaminess. So let's try. Wow. Yeah. How to describe it? Yes, the mushrooms are forward. So you're going to definitely taste those mushrooms. So if you're not a mushroom fan, sorry guys. I think the manchego with the truffle does add flavor, but it's not overpowering. It's not like some truffles that, you know, all you could taste is the truffle and But no, it just, like I said, it enhances the dish. Now, manchego is not as salty as, say, a Romano or a Pecca Romano or even a Parmesan. So you may want to add a little more salt, but it's all on your tastes. So taste it often and make sure that you like it. I am in love with this dish. I think it's so gorgeous. I think it's everything that the Empress would want in a meal. You've got your nourishing bone broth, your mushrooms that ground you and just enlighten the senses. You've got the bacon, that's always delicious. And the chives, you know, the chives, don't discount them because they have a very subtle onion flavor that's kind of grassy. Again, turning this whole meal into just a beautiful earthy dish. warming, comforting. What else could you love? Let's have a cup of bone broth. Now I'm pouring that stock into my cup. It's hot. And I'm going to add some salt. Now we didn't salt this, remember. This is an Alehi salt, a Hawaiian sea salt. Cheers. You can feel the nourishment just going right down your throat. Delicious. A good cup of bone broth in the winter. You're doing your body good. Mama Earth would approve. Now, let's talk about the card. So, when you turn the Empress card in any spread, it depends on who she's flanked with, but she automatically is telling you to be grounded. If you're juggling a million things, if you're in 8 different directions, if you, are grieving or soul searching, the Empress, with her beautiful color scheme and her motherly smile, will bring you back to earth. She grounds you. And grounding is welcomed to those that are often in their own heads, at the will of others. Bringing yourself back to yourself is so important. How do you do that? Well, she's Mother Earth, so the best thing you can do is take a walk in the woods. If you don't have the woods and you live in the city, go to the park. Sit there. Even if it's 12 degrees outside, take a walk. Bundle up. Drink some bone broth. Mother Earth, our Empress. A beautiful card. See you next week.